Welcome everyone, my name is Mel and thanks for joining this morning's webinar, the 7 Mindsets of Digital Age Leadership. I just want to say huge welcome. We've got people from so many different countries on the webinar this morning. We've got people from Japan, from Australia, from Vietnam, and also for all of you that are early risers here in the UK, thank you for joining an 8 AM start webinar with me. My name is Mel Ross. I am going to be your host today. I'm a leadership coach and mentor and chief architect of the DILYN Way Best Practice Framework for leading in a digital age, which of course the 7 mindsets are a key part of. Now, just to kick off, there's a few things I just want to do from a housekeeping perspective. Number one, for those of you that don't know me, I'm pretty informal. So we've got a Q&A section as part of this webinar. So if there's a question that you've got, just pop it into that Q&A area, and what I'll do is I'll have a look at that at the end. I'm not scripted, so I will be talking to you really informally today. I don't want it to be a formal presentation, although I do have slides. Also, the other thing as well is that we've put an hour in today's webinar. I will not be speaking for an hour, and certainly I don't want this webinar to last for an hour. We want it to be pretty short in terms of timing, but the content, of course, is very, very important. The reason why we put an hour in is that we always like to encourage a sense of mindfulness in the people that attend our webinars. So rather than you rushing off to maybe, you know, what you've got on in the evening for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, or the chaos of the day ahead of you for those of you that are in the UK, maybe at the end of the webinar, if you've still got some of that time allocated left, why don't you spend a wee bit of time on reflection, write some notes, and I'll share with you my contact details at the end of the webinar so that you can get in touch with me with any questions. Really, really open from that perspective. Before we kick off, what I wanted to do is just start with giving you a little bit of an understanding of who we are as an organisation. Now, we are an organisation that's been around for 7 years, and we have got a growing global footprint in terms of who we work with around the world. We work with governments as well as private enterprise. We work with small to medium organisations and also technology startups. In terms of where we sit within the world of digital transformation. So organisations that are going through digital transformations organically or formally are really where the sweet spot is for us. What I'm showing here is a slide which really gives you an understanding of the specific area that is our sweet spot as an organisation, and it's where I want to actually frame today's conversation with you. So those of you that are familiar with design thinking, you'll be familiar with the phraseology of divergent and convergent working. So what we've got on the left hand side and the right hand side here is what we call divergent activities of transformation. So on the right hand side, you might be in your organisation working as part of a digital transformation team. There might be design thinking capability around product and service and redesign that you might have, and there might be a formal set of projects, programs, or a complex portfolio that is in play within your organisation. These things might be connected, oftentimes they're not. And then if we look on the left-hand side, this is really the more people-focused element of transformation and change, the transitioning into a modern organisation. So there might be culture shift that you're involved with, future workforce and capability, digital literacy, and of course that change management. So we've got these two things oscillating on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. What we do and what we work on and what we focus on is that bit in the middle is leadership. And for us, it is the leaders that make the direct connection between the two divergent activities. Not only that, they also help those divergent activities themselves actually converge and connect. What I want to do really quickly now is I'm going to basically put together a poll and just launch a poll, which those of you that are connected through the platform rather than dialing in should see a poll in front of you here. So it's a simple question: which side of these are you most involved with? So are you somebody that works in people services or part of culture, or are you on the right-hand side? Are you somebody that is specific to digital transformation? So I'd just like you to choose which one of these sides you're actually most involved with. So if you can just go ahead and answer that question, that would be fantastic. So we've got the polls coming in now. Love the fact that a few of you are saying the whole lot. That's brilliant. Excellent. Now, the interesting thing, what we've got is we've got the majority of you working on the left-hand side or a little bit of both. Now, interestingly enough, only one of you, and we've got quite a lot of people on the call today, only one person is actually saying that they work specifically in the middle, which is that leadership piece. And that's a really big hint to a gap that we've got in digital transformation at the moment. Okay, well, that's a little bit of interactivity for us. Let's kick on. So that's the sweet spot of where we work, and that's where the 7 mindsets of digital age leadership actually play into our work with organizations. We also have a journey of shift. So whether we're working with an individual leader, whether we're working with a group of leaders or an entire organization, we follow this 4-step process as part of our framework. So we go through assess, which is understanding the maturity and the mental modeling of the people. We then align those results with individual goals and organizational objectives and goals and vision. And then we go into activate and amplify. And that's the really exciting part for us. That's the actual journey of change, which is what we call the habit cycle, the methodology of habitual small change for big impact. And what you can see on the bottom of that slide there is our focus area. So we are less involved in training intervention, and we're more focused on mentoring and coaching, and not just in terms of external support but also raising and identifying mentoring coaches within the organization. And you might already have some of that within your change management campaigns, maybe with identifying champions. But the key thing here really as well is micro shift for big impact. So that's a little bit about who we are. Everything culminates in the DILYN way, and the DILYN way is the best practice framework for leading in a digital age, and the 7 mindsets sit within that framework that I've just told you a little bit about. Ultimately, at Adapt to Digital here, every single one of us and all of our global practitioners actually really are wedded to this mission. And it's the gift of the digital age is our ability to reconnect with our humanity. Society and environment, the idea of bringing humanity into leadership is absolutely vital, and for us, a key part of digital transformation. And that is very important when it comes to mindset shift. So, before I head into what are the 7 mindsets, and I'm sure you're there saying, Mel, can you get to the chase, please? But I just want to do some unpicking of the knitting a wee bit, because I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about mindset, and also this word digital. So when we talk about leadership, there's something that we all should be aware of, that there's a real shift in how we think about leadership and how leadership is received globally in our corporate world. Distributed leadership really is a consequence of the digital age. So it's less about who we are as a leader by label and our job title and where we sit in the structure of our organization. And it's more about recognizing who we are as a leader by profile. And that's really, really important. When we talk about leadership working with customers, we have 3 tribes of leaders that we work with. We work with that traditional leader of label because we have to. And they're really still very, very important, because hierarchy is not something that we want to devolve. It's the command and control that we want to devolve in digital transformation. So that's the first tribe. The second tribe for us are the leaders of change, the people that are operationally involved in change. And that can be consultancy, mentoring, coaching, people that are working in people services, learning and development, organizational design, people that are working in projects, data, technology, you name it, product and service, customer service. All of these people in our ecosystems are the drivers of change. So we're looking to work with those as our second tribe. And the third tribe that we work with are the leaders of the future. And really it is, who are the people that have got the natural inclinations, the natural mindsets within the 7 mindsets of digital age leadership that are going to be the leaders of the future. Second, mindset. What is mindset? I don't know about you, but I feel that the word mindset is so intangible. What exactly does it mean? Well, for us, it means our values. It means our beliefs, and it means the way that we think. That's a really important point for me to raise here. When I'm talking about the 7 mindsets, yes, it's about how do we adopt the 7 mindsets, but there's a shadow side. We also have to remember that we have beliefs, we have legacy thinking that we actually need to release. And one of the key things for us in that first phase of assess is identifying what beliefs and thinking that we're hanging on to, which is actually just embedded within us because it's familiar, and really it's part of the old industrial age that we need to ditch it and jettison that mindset and that way of thinking off so that we can build some space and open up some space for bringing in those new mindsets in. And finally, digital. Well, actually, do you know what? We used to be asked to come and talk to customers about digital, and they'd spend a lot of money for us to go in and do workshops on, tell us what digital means. And we did that. And about 4 years ago, as a team, as an organization, we decided not to do that anymore. And you know why? Everybody's got a different definition for digital. So for us, we don't talk about the word digital on its own anymore. We talk about the digital age. And if in your narrative, when you're talking about transformation and digital transformation, if you just put that word age and use the phraseology of digital age in your narrative and when you're talking and helping others, then actually what you do is you make a connection, you make it human, you make it about the environment and society. And that's really, really important, because digital transformation, as I'm sure everybody on the call today knows, that it's not about technology. It's actually about people first, and it's about us as humans. Okay, so the 7 mindsets of leading in a digital age. What are they? Well, here they are right in front of you here. The first thing I want to do is I just want you all to just kind of read through them. And I want you to think to yourself, do you recognize them? Do they feel a little bit uncomfortable for you? Do you feel that you evidence some of these already? Also, when you're looking at these, do you recognize any of these in people around you, in the leaders that you're working with, your boss, your CEO, the people that are driving digital transformation in your organization? Do you recognize any of these mindsets in them? Because one of the important things for us is that there is, when you think about leadership development, some misnomers that are out in the marketplace. The first thing is that there's a purist element to it, that it's all about we all need to be systems leaders, or we all need to be adaptive leaders. Well, actually, we need to be many things. The world around us is complex and changing. So we need an interplay of different leadership qualities, and the way that we can be able to be agile and have that interplay of these different leadership qualities is first and foremost to think about the way we think. So that's where these 7 mindsets come into play. We don't want to be purist and just adopt one of them. We want to have a balance across all 7 mindsets. And also in others, recognize the strength that others have in these mindsets, as well as the strength that we have ourselves, so that we can start being more distributed about how we approach leadership. So I might have a strength and experimental mindset, but when the occasion arises and I need more transparency, and I might not necessarily have that strength, but I know maybe somebody next to me does, then it's their time to shine. And I bring them as my collective intelligence, as my buddy, as my peer, and I ask them to support. So the idea of the networked ecosystem that some of you may be aware of is where all of these 7 mindsets come into play. So that's the 7 mindsets holistically. Now what I want to do is I just want to deep dive into each one of them quickly for us. So the first one, digital, the digital native mindset. What on earth does that mean, Mel? Well, if we think about the digital native, we'll think about those people that are born digital. Some people talk about postmodern. A lot of us would be aware of the millennial. And, you can look at the work of Simon Sinek, who talks a lot about the digital native mindset and the pluses and the minuses. That's a really important point as well. We're talking about the strength elements and the positive and really important elements of each one of these mindsets. We're not talking about the shadow sides of these. So that's really important too, just for me to make that point. So what's the digital native mindset for you to adopt as a leader, or for you to help the leaders around you to adopt? Well, if you look at that image that we've got there, 99% of Gen Z, I beg your pardon, are on social media every single day. What does that mean when you translate it into helping shift the mindset of the leaders around us? Well, they're conversational. They are digital first in the way that they think. They are collective intelligence. They're being really distributed about their sharing their thoughts and sharing how they think and being in that digital world and being a part of that collective intelligence. So really it's that exposure to technology, that ease around technology. And for us, it's being that early adopter. So when we're talking about leaders leaning into a digital transformation, what we're saying is we want our leaders to actually be early adopters of technology and new technology that's coming into the workplace, so that when we're deploying, for example, Office 365, instead of sending a communication out to say everybody needs to adopt Office 365, and maybe you might be talking about Planner or Notes, well, if you're going into a meeting and your boss is still there with a pen and paper, are you really going to adopt that? So role model leadership is really important, and the digital native mindset helps the leaders shift the culture as part of our digital transformation. Now let's look at the next one, adaptive. For us, adaptive really connects to the experimental mindset. Now, there's a few things about experimental mindset. It's fundamental. That's one thing I'll say to you. And the second thing that I'll say to you is that whilst experimental mindset, when you see it, first off, it feels a little bit alien. It's actually not. We are experimental as human beings, and just to really be more experimental is absolutely important. A famous person talking about experimental mindset is Elon Musk, when he talks about first principle thinking, and he brings the idea of being experimental as a leader into the moments of business as usual in his everyday life. And the way he does that is basically whenever he comes up against a problem, whenever there is a challenge, as a leader, he breaks it down to its fundamental pieces, and then he looks at, right, okay, these are the fundamentals I've got. How can I rebuild them up with what I've got in order for me to be a little bit more innovative and for me to improve what I've got? That's the thinking where experimental mindset comes from. And if you can see in that quote there, it says, rather than by analogy. And what that basically means is, if we can adopt an experimental mindset in our leadership approach to change and digital transformation, it means that the evidence that we have to present our business cases for change doesn't have to be, well, that company over there has done it, therefore that's the reason why we should do it. We can say our experimental evidence points to this. So we are absolutely building our own data and our own courage around change and transformation. One thing that's really important here, just to make a point of, is that experimental mindset is very different to change. When we're adopting change, change is something that has an identified outcome. We know what we want to go toward when we are implementing change. So if you've got a project, you pretty much know what success looks like in that project. And even though you might be adopting agile methodology to deliver that project, so you might iterate and journey along different pathways to get to that end state, you have a defined end state. When you're experimental, when you adopt an experimental mindset, there is no outcome, which means that test and learn and fail fast are things that are low risk. Now, if you're in an agile project and you already have an outcome, what you ought to be doing is iterating, but not necessarily failing. So it's quite a distinction between the two. Let's head on. Connected, the network mindset. I love this one. If we think about digital transformation, every digital transformation in any small or large way is trying to shift our organization from silos to being more connected, to being more open, to being more fluid, to being more of a collective, intelligent ecosystem. That's what we're aiming towards in digital transformation. So the networked mindset is about how you as a leader can start thinking about, where can I get more intelligence in order for me to have the best decision-making ability? So no one person can know enough to make the best decision anymore. It's absolutely impossible. We've got 2.5 quintillion bytes of data being created every single day. So being more networked, being more platform focused as leaders, allowing fluidity of ideas and contribution, really, really important. The other thing that's important about the network mindset is how we as leaders don't think about just ourselves and our team and our department and our objectives. We think more environment, we think more world. So we are being connected externally to our societies and our world more, rather than just thinking siloed and purist around connected within our own internal ecosystem. And the next one is the transparent mindset. So this is our fourth principle that's connected to the mindset of transparency. This is about being open by default. This is where we bring in the real human side of leadership. We show vulnerability. We are transparent. We have inclusivity. So it's really, really important for us, because if we're open, we are open to the possibility of success. We are open to the possibility of potential. And for those of you that are familiar with Carol Dweck's growth mindset, this is where growth mindset really plays into the world of digital age leadership and the 7 mindsets. And I love this quote that you can see at the bottom here: transparency is a mindset, not a business model. So a question to you all here, when you're thinking about digital transformation in your own organization or for your own department or your own project, is transparency something that is in the narrative of the machinery of your transformation, or is it actually in the leadership cultural shift? And it's really important for it to be in the latter and not the former. Okay, let's move on. Data informed. The mindset here is data mindful. We talk very much at Adapt to Digital about data mindfulness, and those that you on the call today that know us know that we really lead with data mindfulness. And data mindfulness, as you can see in the image on the right hand side here, sits down into 4 key areas. The first one is ethical. So being ethical around cybersecurity, the safety of data that we are creating ourselves, but also the safety of others with regards to their data. Empathy, making decisions on a balance of qualitative and quantitative decision. Even the CFO of an organization should be making the most purest financial decisions with qualitative data, behavioral data, human data alongside it. And Capgemini have made some fantastic inroads when it comes to statistics to say that if we make our decisions based on a balance of qual and quant data, our output, our outcomes are up to 26% more profitable as a result, more effective. So being mindful of qualitative and quantitative decision making, really, really important. And then the third one is evidence-based, data-driven decisions. How many of us follow processes on automatic pilot day by day for making decisions? How many of us make decisions that are transaction based? For us, the evidence-based side of being data mindful is really being conscious about the decisions that we're making as leaders and as individuals in the organization, and thinking to ourselves, oh, blimey, did I use evidence to make that decision? Was that assumption that I used to make the decision? Or did I just automatically go through a process to make that decision? So it's really important for us to become more conscious in the evidence side of being data mindful. And Finally, that one that we've got at the top there, which is what we call emerging. And that's really where we bring experimental proof points that we ourselves are working on, and we start using that experimental evidence to help our own decision making. That's being data mindful. The next one is future orientated mindset. And this is really important. For us, what we say is every single leader in an organization, and remember the 3 leadership tribes I talked about at the start, every leader really should have both a forward and an outward looking frame of reference. Not only should we be aware of what our organizational vision is, but we should be aware of what's happening around us. We should be aware of emerging technology that is being used in different sectors or in different countries, not just new technology that is in the technology roadmap of our own organization that's going to be deployed in the next 12 months, for example. That's the difference between new and emerging technology. So future-orientated mindset, hugely important. And the next one, audience-focused, human-centered mindset. This is really important. This is the 7th mindset of digital age leadership, human-centered mindset. And this looks to humanity and society again. For us, we always say that the success value of digital transformation is when we adopt a people first and digital always approach, not a digital first approach. If we put the human first, there will always be a digital uplift. It might not necessarily be a direct uplift, it might be indirect. So I noticed that a lot of people on the call today work in public sector. So a good example of that would be if you're thinking about housing, and you're thinking about maybe looking at some of your vulnerable cases, or looking at the elderly, you might be thinking about a lady that is living on her own in social housing, and she might be there and her boiler might not be working. But if we have sensors on that boiler, we will be able to detect indirectly through digital that that boiler might not be working, and we will be able to address that and work it out, and we won't be waiting for that lady to get sick, to get a cold, to actually suffer. So it's bringing an indirect approach to digital into really that people first element. So that's the final mindset of the 7 mindsets of leading in a digital age. There's something else I want to share with you briefly before I pass over to any questions that you might have, which is how do these 7 mindsets play into what might be some language that we can hear in our current capability strategies as part of digital transformation or future workforce and future leadership. So on the right hand side, you might see some things that you're familiar with, you know, the qualities of adaptive leadership, and certainly agile leadership, number 4 in that list, or systems leadership, etc. The 7 mindsets are the precursors. They are the entry points for us to use what we've got on the right hand side here as outcomes. So in order for us to deliver what we've got on the right, we want to focus on our 7 mindsets. So for us, we call them the keystone mindsets. So quick question. I don't know whether anybody on the call here is familiar with James Clear's work on keystone habits and atomic habits. If you're not, it's a fantastic book. Please go out and get it. It's brilliant. Don't worry, I'm not on commission for it, but it's a fantastic book. And everything that he talks about when it comes to keystone habits is actually, and I've got, it is a great book. Thanks for that comment, Penny. It's absolutely brilliant. And we use it a lot in our work when it comes to activate and amplify. The key thing here is that every single one of these mindsets has a knock-on effect. So if we individually or in support of our leaders help them adopt a digital native mindset, what will happen is we will have a ripple on effect that all of a sudden adaptive leadership will start emerging, as well as courageous leadership, as well as agile leadership, which is amazing when you think about that. So the title of the book is James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's absolutely brilliant. In fact, he's also got a website, and if you go on his website and sign up to his blog, there's some fantastic stuff that he does there. So the big thing for me really is, in terms of a takeout, is thinking about these 7 mindsets as a collective. Holistically, they together make the digital age leader. And what you want to do is recognize your strengths and then role model your strengths and work on your development areas. But as you're focusing on your strengths, think about the strengths that other people might have in some of the other mindsets, and then bring in collective intelligence, work together as leaders to create that common good and to address the challenges that we have. So the DILYN way really for us is shifting digital transformation away from technology and data into what you can see here. Transforming organizations succeed when they have the presence of transforming cultures. Transforming cultures are driven by role model leadership that is itself defined as transforming leadership. And if we have a level and focus of commitment on those 7 mindsets of digital age leadership, we will always be transforming as leaders. So we become less about knowledge focus and more about who we are as leaders, as opposed to what we do as leaders. We don't lead with skill and capability, we lead with mindset. And then the next question we've got is, does your profiling tool help me with regards to these mindsets? It absolutely does. The key thing about our profiling tool, the DILYN profiling tool, is it allows you, the leader, or your leadership team to understand where their current mindsets are in order for them to do 2 things. Number 1, recognize their strengths so that they can start role modeling and leaning into digital transformation. Because you know what? We've been profiling people for over 7 years, and I can tell you, not one leader, regardless of how traditional they might think they are, not one leader is devoid of a strength that they have that they can contribute to digital transformation. Everybody has strength contribution. So that's the first thing, recognizing strength. And then the second thing is recognizing the development areas in your current mindset maturity, and then helping you work on those areas. If we can then, as a collective, understand our collective strengths, then we are able to then be able to look collectively at what that means as a group. Because if we've got collective intelligence and we haven't got everybody doing the same thing and everybody with the same profile, that we've got variety and diversity in our teams, whether it's a leadership team by profile, a change team, or indeed a future leadership talent team, then we are more likely to succeed because we're more effective, because we've got diversity there. Is this being recorded? Absolutely. Any more questions? Pull them in. But what I just want to do quickly end by saying to you, a lot of the questions that are coming in that I can see are asking about, how can I have access to this profiling tool that you're talking about? So let me just tell you very briefly about how you can find out more about how we can engage and how we engage with organizations. So what you can see here is, if you are a leader, if you are working specifically with leaders, we have our Leadership 2020 leadership program, which is a program that takes an individual leader or a group of leaders through a transformational journey. So we hear about digital transformation in terms of organization. The Leadership 2020 Vision Program takes leaders individually and collectively through self-digital transformation. And then the next thing that you can see here in the middle is practitioner certification. So those of you that are working and supporting the development of change leaders, leaders by label, the leaders in your organization, or indeed you might be working with new talent and aspiring leaders for your organization, the practitioner certification allows you to become a certified practitioner in our framework, which means that you can design and deliver your own leadership interventions and also use our toolkits for your own work, helping leaders around you. Which brings me to the final piece, which is the DILYN profiling tool. The DILYN profiling tool is an online tool that you can use and purchase directly off our website, or you can work with us collectively or work with one of our certified practitioners that we have all over the world. So if you're in a different country, if you are in a particular sector, we can map you and do a little bit of dating matching, make sure that you're with one of our practitioners that is best suited for you. So we're coming up to 40 minutes on the webinar now. What I'd like to say is just quickly, thank you so much for everybody. I hope that this has been a very brief but valuable introduction to you, not only to the 7 mindsets of leading in a digital age, but also a little bit of a look-see into the DILYN Way framework, the best practice framework for leading in a digital age.